Hello folks, my name is Mark and this is UCD Game Reviews. How you guys doing? So I'm sure all of you out there have heard of Rayman. It was one of the best games to come out of the 32-bit era, and the series is still going today. This was a game that was created by the same team that created Rayman. In particular, it was their first attempt at creating a game in a 3D environment. And you can kind of see a little bit of similarities here. You know, the main character has that sort of floating phantom limb kind of thing, where he doesn't have any actual arms and legs and just feet and hands running around. Fortunately, that's where the similarities end, because this game is a horrible, broken, unfinished piece of garbage. Now, to be clear, this version of Tonic Trouble is the special edition that was released before the full retail release. And apparently it was a beta version that was only partially finished, and it definitely shows. I got mine way back in 1998, bundled in with some video card or something, I can't remember. But this really wouldn't be that hard to find today. And the thing is, it's a lot different than the full Nintendo 64 version. A lot of the layouts are different, characters are missing, some of them are completely gone. It also seems to have a lot of unfinished graphics and sound effects. The camera is just absolutely horrible, and the controls are just, oh my god, the fucking controls are the worst ever.
Hair with the sparkle in your eyes, and the sight of your lingerie from Carmani. Burke doesn't deserve you. He's a fungus, a schmoll. Oh, yes, yes, open the door quickly, my darling. I'm here, I'm waiting.
So you're Ed, and you're this like alien janitor guy, and you're lovesick for this one alien chick that you never actually see, and he's like outside of her room reciting bad emo poetry when then like this other alien dude comes in to beat him up, and then he drinks some stuff that falls on the earth. And you know, do you really give a shit? Do you really care how bad, you know, the plot is in the game that is like this fucking horrible? Like, obviously you don't give a shit, okay? You're an alien, you have to clean shit up, the end, alright? Anyway, you fall on the earth, and the first level starts with you in this sled race, for some reason, down this mountain, and there's a timer going, but I don't think you get any kind of benefit for beating your best time because nothing seems to happen, I don't know. And you end up at the bottom of this gully, and there's nothing there. Then you go through this portal that leads to this colorful forest kind of place, which actually doesn't look half bad, but then you notice how unfinished the game looks. You know, the graphics are good until you look at them closely, and then you realize that they're all blurry and low res, and then there's like seams going through the sky. It's just horrible. And the camera in this game is quite possibly the worst camera I've ever seen in any video game I've ever played ever. It gets stuck behind stuff. It swings around wildly with no rhyme or reason. You know, you can try to center it, but half the time that doesn't even work, and like, God forbid you try to stand up against a wall or something, because then it just goes off on some weird-ass crazy angle that you have no control over. And the thing is, it wouldn't be so bad if you didn't need that stupid camera, because 90% of the game seems to be doing tricky jumps that you can't tell where you're supposed to jump if the camera's not in the right place. So it's just, fucking horrible. It's horrible. I mean, this messed up camera that goes wherever the hell it wants, coupled with these bonkers ass controls, makes simply walking around incredibly difficult. And that's the thing about the controls, is that they're horrible. They suck. They're broken. They're fucked up. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, this is one of those games where walking up makes you go forward, regardless of which way the camera's pointing. So, if the camera's way off to the side, and it looks like you should be pressing left or right, you still have to press up. But the problem is the camera doesn't stay centered when you start moving around, so you can't even walk in a straight line. You end up zigzagging all over the place, which wouldn't be a problem, except there's parts in the game where you have to walk in a straight line. This part where you have to walk across this log and some other like small ledges and shit like that. So it's just ridiculous, right? But instead of just fixing the controls in the first place, they tried to compensate with this weird-ass floaty jump thing, which is like, but it's all slow and weird, and it feels like you're jumping through marshmallows. I mean, the thing about a 3D platformer is that the controls have to be spot on, especially if it's something that has a lot of like weird platforms and tricky jumps and timed jumps and narrow ledges and things like that. So like you say you take something like Mario 64, where the character has the feeling of weight and momentum, it makes it easy to judge if a particular jump can be accomplished, right? Not so here. In this game, no matter how many times you do it, no matter how many times you do the same jump, it always feels like you're going to miss because the jumping mechanic is fucking broken. I mean, it's so bad that it makes the game almost unplayable. And even in easy parts where you barely need it, it's like weird and unnatural. This wouldn't be so bad, but the levels seem to be made up completely of weird, tricky jumps. Jumping on ledges, jumping on moving platforms, jumping on platforms that disappear, you name it. And when you're not jumping, you're trying to walk on narrow ledges, or walking between spikes or something like that, which means you're usually just falling off because, as we already mentioned, Ed can't even walk in a straight fucking line to save his life. So the shit gets old after a while, and it's like it ceases to become challenging, it ceases to become fun, and becomes a chore. And you start dreading sections like this. You start dreading these places where you have to like jump on different platforms that disappear and you can't tell which way you have to fucking go, and you can't tell if a jump that's like this far on the screen and you look like you could totally easily make it, you get afraid. You don't think you're going to be able to make it. It's ridiculous, right? So there's other play mechanics too. Ed can actually shoot. You get a blowgun at a certain part in the game, which you can also use to manipulate levers and things like that. The problem is that in order to shoot, it goes into a first-person mode, but then the cursor moves, and the aiming cursor moves so incredibly slow. You can't use it as an offensive weapon because the bad guys won't shoot at you until you try to shoot at them. But if you try to shoot at them, they always are able to shoot you first because the cursor goes so slow that you can't target them. It makes it unplayable. There's a couple of other things. There's a power-up popcorn thing that makes you turn into a buff guy where you have to beat up bosses and shit like that, but it really does feel like it's unfinished. And that's the problem with the game. It looks decent enough if you're just walking by it in a store and you see it on a computer screen or something like that and you go, oh, that game looks good. But if you play it and if you look closely, you can definitely tell that it's unfinished, and it's definitely, there should have been more here. There's puzzles that don't go anywhere. There's things like signs and stuff that you're supposed to collect things and you don't know what they are and no one tells you. You know, a big problem with games nowadays is everybody says that the tutorials drag you by the nose and stuff like that. Well, this is one of those games that doesn't have any of that shit, and as a result, you have no idea what you're supposed to do. There's no indication of where to go next, of what you need to get or whatever. It's just sort of trial and error, which gets really old because you can't control it and you just end up falling off ledges, missing jumps over and over and over and over. And then the goddamn game crashes because it doesn't run on anything made in the 21st century. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So you're most likely to encounter this game in the used games section at a thrift store next to all of the sports titles and copies of Rock Band that nobody wants anymore. They just leave it there. You're not missing very much. In fact, what you're missing is a lot of frustration and rage. You don't need that. So this one you can safely not just skip. I think you should destroy it if you come across it in the wild. Buy this game and then, like, you know, chop it up with like scissors or something. Put it in a wood chipper because it's horrible. Anyway, adios, folks.